Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Maria Furlano. Thank you for joining me today on the Art of Tuning In podcast. This is episode 81, and I'm calling this episode Suppressing Your Intuition. And I'm so glad that you're joining me. It's been a while since I did an episode. My last episode was in November 2022. It is now, today is February 20th, 2023. So much has shifted in my life in such a good way. For those of you who have been listening for a while or who work with me privately or as a student, you know that I was in the process of moving from San Diego to Ojai and selling my home and finding a new place to live and all of those things. And it took about 7 months longer than our original plan was, but it's worked out beautifully. I am now in Ojai, California, and living in a beautiful space. Oh my gosh, loving it. It is so gorgeous. I have been meeting amazingly kind, generous people, wise people. It's just amazing. I've only been here for 2 months. My husband and I moved here in January, so we started the new year here, and it's just been amazing. So I'm sorry that I've been away for a little while. I never intended to not do a podcast for that long, but it's hard moving, and I'm sure you've experienced that it takes a lot more out of you than you think it will. At least it did for us. And every time I felt like we could settle and maybe sit in and do a podcast, it just never really worked out. So I found my quiet space and I'm here and just so glad to be with you. And if you're new here, thank you for finding me. Thank you for joining me. Again, my name is Maria Furlano and I am a vibrational coach. I'm a spiritual intuitive. And I specialize as a master teacher in the energetic and healing arts. I am a doctor of medical Qigong, and I teach workshops, and I work with people privately. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I absolutely love it. If you want to learn more about what I offer, please visit theartoftuningin.com. And you can also get a free download when you're there if you need some help calming and rooting your mind in 4 minutes. I'd love to share that with you. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, theartoftuningin.com. Some new things are coming out this year. I'm going to be doing a group mentorship program, and I'm very excited about it. So if you sign up at my website, you'll learn all about it. And if you've been here a while, thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming back. It's great to see you. So, suppressing your intuition. This is something that continually comes up when I'm teaching or when I'm working with people privately. And right now, as many of you probably know, because you're very savvy about these things, but we've moved into a Pisces period. We just had a Pisces new moon. Pisces is a very fluid and very intuitive sign. This Pisces time, this fluidity, this intuitive expansion is reminding me of when I'm working with people and how they're learning to tune into their intuition. So one of the things that I focus on with people is how do they align their energy and how do they tune in to their own intuition, to their own guidance, to their own spiritual connection so that they can be led in their lives in the way that is right for them. So you're not constantly listening to others. My whole goal is to teach people how to care for themselves, how to take care of their energy, and how to expand into their own intuitive knowing. And what I have been told a lot of times is that people kind of learn spirituality quietly, that they learn to expand their intuition, and some people are learning mediumship, some people are learning channeling, but it can be kind of quiet, like they don't tell the people around them, because the people around them, perhaps in their closest circles, may not be as into this as they are. And so what often comes up with people is that if we feel like we don't fit in, we can feel vulnerable. We can feel a little scared because everybody wants to fit in with the tribe. And when you realize that you're not like your tribe or you're not like the people who are closest to you, it can be a little scary. And so we can begin to suppress our natural gifts on a daily basis because we just don't want to appear weird or different. But this is a problem because first of all, everybody has a sense of intuition. It depends on how much you've practiced aligning your energy, grounding your energy, clearing your mind, clearing your energy. All of these skill sets that we have that allow us to tune in or gain alignment with source, gain alignment with divine wisdom. Those are skills, those are a practice. And so depending on how used to yourself doing that you are, or how much you practice, especially if it's new for you, then more and more intuitive knowing flows through you. Some people are just automatically very intuitive all their life, and it's easy. They just have a knowing. They can't always explain why. They just know. But even those people who are highly intuitive just kind of naturally, they can begin to suppress their energy. And what happens when we begin to suppress our intuitive knowing or energetically sensing, and we try to kind of turn it off, or we try to downplay it, or we just ignore it, is our body actually can begin to react against us. We can start to not feel well. We can start to feel very tired. Certain conditions in our body can come up because we're going against the natural flow of energy that we have. And I realize that a lot of people don't think of it this way. But what's interesting is I work with people all the time on their emotional state, right? You've heard me talk about this before. So let's say you were to come and work with me and I were to say to you, this anger that you're holding in your body, that you're suppressing, that you're not releasing, that you're not coming to terms with, that you're not allowing yourself to move into a new stage, to listen to the information from the anger, to tune into your body, to listen to yourself, to allow that to heal so that you can move into a more peaceful, forgiving, and aligned state. Or the sadness that you're feeling that is weighing so deeply into your lungs, the emotional state, you're not listening to that, you're not tuning into it, you're not allowing it to heal and go and release from your life in the way that it needs to support you. If I were to say that to someone, which I do all the time, it makes sense to people. They say, you're right, I'm holding on to these emotions and my body isn't flowing the way that it could, or that it really is designed to freely. That all of this suppression of emotional energy is exhausting me, or it's keeping me from feeling my best. It's allowing me to be disconnected to myself. Intuitive knowing, intuitive energy, intuitive tapping in is vital and important for the same reasons that allowing your body to heal from emotions that are stuck or suppressed or not moving freely in your life, or that you're holding on to that you don't need to. It's just as vital as that for the health of your body, for the well-being of your life. Because intuitive knowing is a natural connection we have with the universe, with the earth, with our environment. So we're energetic beings, and we're flowing constantly as energetic beings, where we have all these electrical, magnetic energy that flows through us, that surrounds us, right, in our energetic fields. And the universe and the earth and nature has the same fluid of energy flowing through it. So as we receive information from each other, and as we realize how truly connected we are to everything else, we're not only in our own bubble that we create for ourselves in our lives, but we really are connected to everything else. We can learn to tap in, tune into our environment, to the earth, to the universe, and receive information that we can't really receive if we just have these blinders on the side of our face and we just kind of look steadfast forward and maybe just think about logic, or we're caught in fear, and then we can't access these other energies. When we do that, our body flows in a very different way, as you can imagine, than it will when we are really learning to tune in and expand our sense of knowing. So what happens if you're in a situation where you just don't feel very comfortable expressing intuitive things that you're receiving? Well, the first thing I want to just ask everybody is to sense into yourself and pay attention if you are, more often than not, suppressing what you intuitively feel, what you intuitively know, what you intuitively see, what you intuitively sense, what you intuitively hear, what you intuitively taste, right? You know, I'm referring to a series of podcast episodes that I did on all of the intuitive clairs, all of the way that we sense information. And if you haven't listened to those episodes on interpreting intuition, they begin with 76, 77, and 78. And those are 3-part series you can listen to. They're on my YouTube channel as well. All of those different ways that we sense information, if we're not used to paying attention to them, we can kind of just brush them off because they become extremely difficult to describe. So this is what happens if you're not with people who you can just feel comfortable saying, well, I don't really want to do that because I just have this feeling that it's not right. Or I just know that doing this or going here or buying this or taking this opportunity just isn't the right opportunity. Or this is the right thing and I can't tell you why, I just know that it is. The reason why that becomes challenging when we're not around people who also just get that is because intuition is very hard to describe. It is very hard to describe to somebody your sense of feeling, knowing, seeing, hearing, smelling. And so you have to get very confident with just saying no or yes, and if you're asked why not, just say, just doesn't feel right to me. You have to get comfortable with that. You have to get confident with being with your own intuition and saying no and not worrying about what other people think. And this is something that I find over and over again is that people begin to expand their intuition. They begin to expand their energy, but then taking it into their regular everyday life can be challenging. And one of the reasons why it is so challenging is because they try to over-explain themselves. This is something that people do regularly anyway. Instead of just saying no, or, no thank you, or I can't do that, or I don't want to do that, sometimes a lot of people get into this mindset where they need to explain their answer or response to someone. And we don't. We do not need to explain our answer or response. This is very good also for understanding boundaries. I work with a lot of people, not only on energetic boundaries, but just personal, emotional boundaries, overgiving in their life or taking on too much or just not having clear energy boundaries, taking on other people's energy, that kind of thing. Just not being able to say no, not being able to have self-care for themselves because they feel guilty about it or they feel that they don't deserve it. And we can over-explain ourselves. We can just kind of give in. And when you have an intuitive hit, as we call it, you just know and there is no explanation for it. Now, if you have a friend who is very open to this kind of living, because it is a lifestyle, you learn to live this way. You learn to live moving from your intuition first, and then looking at facts. That is how I live my life. I have learned that through trial and error, growing up, I finally got to a place where I made a commitment to myself and to the guides who I work with that I will listen to my intuition, because many times I heard or felt or knew something and I didn't pay attention to it because I kind of blew it off. And every time there was a big issue that happened that could have completely been avoided. And so I remember the day that I finally said, all right, no more. I make a commitment to be true to myself, to be true to my energy. I know who I am. I know how intuitive I am. I know that my guides are here to help me. And I know that if I'm willing to tap into that guidance and that intuitive alignment, that I will receive the answer. And from that moment on, I made that commitment. And I have lived that way, and it has proven to be 100% effective. So do I still do research? Yes, I do. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of due diligence. I find out a lot of facts. I do listen to other people's opinions and things, especially when they are knowledgeable or it's their skill set, their career, they know stuff that I don't know. I listen to them, but then I still always, always, always check in with my intuitive way that I sense things. And I always take my time. The other thing that I've learned is I don't respond right away. I will take my time. I will go by myself. I will check in with myself. I will check in with my guides. I might journal or automatically write. I may meditate, pray. However it is, take a walk. That's a big one. And I feel how I feel. And if there's any confusion or there's any doubt or there's anything going on like that, I've learned not to ignore it. Because like I said, the times in my life when I have ignored that because, somebody said it was a great idea or it looked logically really good, it made sense, but it didn't make sense in my body. The times that I've ignored that, like I said, I've created situations for myself that could have completely been avoided. They didn't work out. They were a mess. But because my intuition told me. But it's very hard to explain that to someone. Even the closest people around me, they're wonderful and supportive, and they know if I say, this just doesn't feel right, or I don't have a good feeling about this. That's a lot of times that's what I've learned to say. I don't have a good feeling about this. Don't know why, but something isn't right. It doesn't mean that something isn't right in the world. It means that for me, with this alignment, something's not right. Maybe you can't even see it, or maybe it's going to be revealed later, but it's not the right alignment. There's something else coming. There's something better. This is for somebody else. So if you don't have those people around you where you can just say that, you might find that you suppress your intuition. You might find that you just tune it out, that you don't check in with yourself because you're caught up with wanting to fit in with the people around you. They're making different kinds of decisions and you're just going with the flow. And there's nothing wrong with that, except that if you are a highly intuitive person, if you're listening to this podcast, you're obviously into energetic medicine, energetic healing, intuition, qigong, all of these beautiful things. And your body knows that, your spirit knows that, your soul knows what journey you're on. And you can start to have things like stomach aches. You can start to have headaches. You can start to get sick a lot. You can start to be irritable. Things in your life just stop flowing. They stop working. It can be very hard. It can be depressing. And so you want to take time and ask yourself, am I listening to my divine wisdom? Am I listening to my knowing? Am I even taking a moment or two to feel? Or am I just being swept up in the circumstance and moving with it before stopping and listening? And am I actually listening and feeling and sensing, but am I then ignoring it? That happens so often. I'm sure you've done this. I know I have done this, where we've looked back and said, I had a bad feeling about that. It didn't feel right. I knew something was off. I should have waited. I should have asked more questions. I should have walked away. We have all of those experiences. And the more that we commit to our own, I am going to care for myself. I'm going to listen to my intuition. I'm going to follow divine guidance. I'm going to look for the clues. I'm going to listen for the clues. I'm going to wait for the information to come to me on a much broader perspective. I always say this is a 360 million degree view that we can't see. That's above us. It's around us. It's beneath us. They're just a different frequency of information that's available to us that we can't always access immediately from where we are until we align our energy, until we tune in. So once you make that commitment and you practice, you begin to stop. You begin to take some time. You begin to not care so much about what other people think. And you learn to trust yourself. And you take these little baby steps with this. The more easier it gets, of course, but it also, the more information comes into you. You really do begin to receive all of this intuitive information because you now are open to it. So I tell everybody this over and over again. The universe does not interfere with us because of the free will that we all have here. The universe, though, will always answer our questions. And the quality of our question dictates the quality of the answer that is given to us by the universe. So if we take the time to tune in, to clear ourselves, to calm ourselves, and to trust, to step in, and we take a little time to come up with the question that we really care about. What is it that we really want to know? Then the universe can just flood us with the beautiful answers, can give us the beautiful clues. And if it's not in that moment that we receive it, of course, you look for clues from other people. Maybe somebody says something. You look for confirmations from signs that you see, music you hear. People actually, in my life, what happens is that people actually will say exact sentences that I need to know. And there's no doubt that that is a confirmation from the universe, from the question that I had asked, that this person knows nothing about, that they are now just bringing up. It's amazing how that happens, and I always laugh, and it's a confirmation. But you have to allow yourself to be open to that. You have to ask, and you have to be willing to receive. A lot of people get very frustrated with what they think is lack of intuition, because they think that intuition and all of this kind of psychic knowing should just come immediately, that it's just easy. But what you really want to remember is that it is a skill. We all have it. We all have the ability to tune into divine. We have the ability to tune into Mother Earth. This is why, my whole practice is called The Art of Tuning In. We have the ability, but it is an art and it's a skill, and we have to practice it. Just like if you were to make, if you were to cook something delicious, the first time you cook it, you're following a recipe, and then you practice it, and then you get better at it until it's finally so comfortable. You don't need a recipe anymore. You just go into the kitchen and you pull out and you understand how it should be measured, and it's a feel, and you're in the flow of it. And that's what tuning into your intuition is. But you want to have the respect of understanding that you are shifting frequencies when you tune into your intuition. You are shifting frequencies when you tune into the guidance that is here for you from guides, from divine, from source, from universal source, from universal energy, from Mother Earth, from the plants, from the trees, from the environments around you. They are all a specific frequency. And sometimes we move through our life in a very dense, slow-moving, fearful, angry, emotionally contracted frequency. Sometimes that's how we are moving through our days. And when we are in that frequency, so if you can picture feeling very dense, feeling very heavy, feeling very slow, feeling very overwhelmed, feeling full of anxiety, feeling sad, feeling angry, right? All of these emotions, because our emotions dictate our frequency. They are huge in how our body flows every day. And our mind, our mental state, is a focus point for those emotions. So we can choose to change our thoughts and change how we feel, change what we're focusing on, and that will shift the emotional flow in our body. It will shift the actual chemical flow in our body. So this is why I want you to picture, when you feel very dense or you feel very heavy or you feel just very emotionally sad. You're moving at a frequency that's very slow. Universal source energy, nature, Mother Earth, moves at a very different frequency than that. Those frequencies are all-knowing. They know who they are. They know what they are. They know how they vibrate. And they're tuned into everything else around them, including their deepest essence. So if we want to commune with source energy, with our guides, with the angelic realm, with the universal chi, with the earth, with nature, then we need to shift our vibration to match that vibration so we can have a conversation. We're meeting new people. Okay, if you want to think of it that we're meeting new energy. We're going into a new group and we want to take a shower, we want to brush our hair. We want to let go of our baggage so that we can meet this new energy in a really clear way. That's why I say that this is a skill set and it's a practice. It takes practice to release energy that you're holding. It takes practice to change your mindset and not allow these emotions to overwhelm you, but instead have the mental control and the mental focus and the mental wish to actually shift how you feel so that then your vibration changes, so your energy flows in a different way. When your energy flows in a different way, your vibration flows in a different way. So think of the universe and the earth, the plants and the trees and your environment. Think of that as vibrating in a much faster frequency than you do, a much lighter frequency. It's not holding on to a bunch of things, and so it's able to easily receive and allow and give. When we are able to shift our mindset from fear into alignment, and when I say alignment, what I mean is we align our energy internally and we connect in with the earth and we connect in with universal energy. And we connect with our environment. That means that we have to go from all of this stuff that's outside of us, maybe all of this energy that's flowing out of us, that's just flowing in all of these different directions, kind of chaotically. Kind of frantically, full of angst and all the stuff we're feeling. We have to go from that space to bringing it in and being responsible for how we're feeling. Take the time to release and clear, to ground our energy, and then to align with a higher frequency, with a more expanded frequency. That is the art of tuning in. That is tuning in to your intuition. That is tuning in to a higher state of wisdom, of intuitive knowing, where you can now have a conversation. You can have a conversation with Source, with nature, with Mother Earth, who sees everything that's happening around you in a completely different way. So you remove yourself from the immediate situation that you're in that might be filled with a lot of fear. It might be filled with overwhelm. It might be filled with a lot of confusion. It may be filled with so many different people's opinions. And you remove yourself from that and you go into your essence, right? This is why we love energetic practices, because the whole point of them, not only to create better health for ourselves, but they move us into our essence. They move us into our energetic essence, who we really are. And when we do that and we take that moment, and I always feel that it's a respect, that I'm going into my essence and I'm having not only respect for myself, but I'm having respect now for the meeting that I'm going to have with Source, with nature, with Mother Earth, because I honor those things very, very deeply. And I don't want to be chaotic with them. And I don't want to dump my stuff on them. I want to have a very balanced and healthy relationship with them. And so it's important I leave my stuff at the door, so to speak, right? And they say, leave your stuff at the door before you enter. And I make sure that I'm aligned so I can have a different conversation. And that's where I'm able to access the question that I really have, or how I'm really feeling. And then how I'm really feeling or the question that I have, I'm able to ask and communicate in a much clearer way. And then the universe responds to me in a very clear way. And when I say clear way and the universe responds to me, I want to make it really clear for you. Because sometimes this gets challenging for people. I want to just remind us that even though it would be wonderful and it does happen, we don't always get that answer right then. My best friend from college, I always joke with her because I say, I'm hearing radio silence. And when I say that to her, it means, I've tuned in, I've talked to the universe, I've asked my question, and it's like nothing, radio silence. There's nothing coming in. And I used to get very frustrated at that. But what I've learned is that either it's not the right time or my frequency really isn't where I can really hear it or feel it or sense it. But if I don't get frustrated and I just allow myself to then, move back into my life and stay aligned and trust, the answer does come. It may not come from the direct way of me hearing my guides or seeing an image or feeling an image that I would love, but it might, again, like I said earlier, it may come from somebody else's words. It may come from a song I hear. It may come from an article that I find. So you want to keep yourself in alignment all the time and be open to receive all the time. And when you do receive that information, you don't need to tell anybody about it. It's wonderful to have a group. This is why we do have groups of people who come together, right? I have a membership, we have workshops. This is why people come together in spiritual groups, all around the world for all of history, so that you can have like-minded people connecting. Okay, so it's wonderful to have those people. And even if you just have one other person, it's really wonderful to be able to speak freely and share who you are. But you don't need to tell another person, or if you're in a situation, you don't need to explain yourself. Well, I just have this intuitive feeling that this isn't right and I shouldn't do this. And they'll go say, but why? Well, I don't know why, but it's just a feeling. And as you do that, oftentimes what happens to people is they begin to feel kind of weaker inside. Their energy begins to kind of diminish because it's like the group is kind of against you or this other person's against you. And they keep saying, why? And they're coming from this logical brain of, I want to know why, I want to know facts. And when you're in an intuitive knowing, or you're getting an intuitive hit, it is not logical. It is a frequency of information. And depending, of course, how you receive that information, and there's no right way to receive it, there's lots of ways to receive that information, you're interpreting in yourself what that information is. And it is extremely hard to then verbally and logically translate that to somebody else. In fact, when you give intuitive readings for someone, it takes a long time to gain that skill set of being able to interpret what it is you're seeing, feeling, knowing, so that someone else can understand you. So imagine if you're in a situation where it's not even set up like that. This person isn't coming to you for an intuitive reading. They're not even open to that. They're in this logical brain. They need to make a decision. Everything looks good and you're saying no. Imagine that friction there. You have two different frequencies vibrating on so many different levels there. There's so much confusion. So this is when people tend to suppress their intuition and they don't say anything or they don't act on what it is they're feeling, hearing, seeing, knowing, sensing, because it doesn't go with the group or it doesn't go with that person, and that person's energy is quite strong often. And so you don't want to go against that because you don't have anything to back it up. You just know it's not right. And so if you're with somebody who doesn't say to you, oh, well, that's interesting. Okay, well, let's pause on that, or let's look into that more. Or, okay, great, I trust your intuition. If you're not with somebody like that, or you're not with a group like that, make sure you just take care of yourself. Maybe you can't speak up. Maybe it isn't appropriate, but follow your own knowing and go a little deeper within and ask for your own guidance to guide you. Please guide me in this situation where maybe right now I can't speak up. What do I need to know from me? How can I help in a quiet way. Ask for help for yourself. Don't just ignore something. Continue to tap in to what you are receiving. Don't ever dim your light, dim your frequency because it's not comfortable for others around you. Your guidance is here for you all the time, and it wants to share with you. Your intuitive knowing wants to have a conversation with you. It wants to have a continual conversation with you. And yes, you're not going to feel great all the time. A lot of times I'm dealing with something that's emotional, something isn't happy. I might hear something in the world, or it might be in my own, just my own life. Maybe I'm sore that day. Maybe I didn't sleep. Maybe I have stuff I got to do that I don't want to do. All of that affects my vibration, but I know that. And once you know that and you're aware of it and you gain the tools to shift that frequency, you can get yourself more and more of the time into an aligned frequency and truly be guided by this intuitive wisdom that is here for all of us and that really wants to communicate with you, and your life really does go a lot smoother. We fight against this intuitive conversation in our life. It's always there, ready for us. We fight against it. So if we can remember that, and we can say, okay, what would it be like if I really did listen and tune in? What would it be like if I just experienced receiving and allowing information to come to me? What would it be like even if I didn't say anything to anybody else, but maybe I kept a journal and I noted it for myself? And then I just kind of looked back and saw, was that a good decision? You don't have to tell everybody, but please do not suppress who you are. Do not suppress your knowing. Do not suppress your intuitive wisdom, because your body needs you to be intuitive so it can be healthy. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I will see you in the next episode. Again, I appreciate your patience with me being away. Thank you for being here. If you have any questions or any topics that you'd love for me to share on, please go to theartoftuningin.com. You can contact me there. Love to hear from you. I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous week. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more and elevate your energetic well-being, I invite you to visit theartoftuningin.com, where you can learn all about our online studio. I look forward to meeting you there.